Hi, everyone. I'm Brent Conway, the Assistant Superintendent with the Pentucket Regional Schools. And with me, I have Jen Hogan, our new K-6 Literacy and Humanities Coordinator. And we want to talk to you a little bit about the letter and notification you're getting home today in kindergarten through grade 2, called the Dyslexia Screening Guidelines Notification. So it's not something new to us for screening for dyslexia, but the Massachusetts Dyslexia Guidelines is the guidelines are placed because of a new legislation that was put in. So we want to make sure we're sending the notification home to you so you understand what it all means. Jen, can you tell us a little bit about what is dyslexia?
Dyslexia is one of the most common of all specific learning disabilities, and oftentimes it is hereditary. It's mainly characterized by a difficulty in learning to read, despite the fact that your child is receiving adequate instruction in the classroom and be of average or even above average intelligence. The main weakness that we see in dyslexia is the student's accurate and efficient word reading ability that is linked to something called phonological processing, which is the ability to attach the sounds that we hear in speech to the letter or letter patterns that are in front of them. And we see these difficulties popping up most often in sight word recognition, oral reading fluency, and it can even appear in spelling as well.
Thanks. So Pentucket's been using some screeners for literacy for several years, like the DIBBLs, you might see that or hear that. How are we using those to help us with this dyslexia screening process?
Well, it's important to note that we screen all students universally a minimum of 3 times a year. So that screening we do is just like the vision and hearing screenings that your child comes home with. And we use the dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills, which we call DIBBLs. So that's something that you might see. And like we said, we actually use it for students K-6, but this legislation and the dyslexia guidelines are focusing on K-2. And some things that we assess for the DIBBLs include dyslexia risk factors, like that phonological processing, manipulating speech sounds, automatic rapid naming, which is the ability to quickly retrieve the names of objects, or in this case, we're using letters as one of those thresholds. The alphabetic principle, so attaching the letters and sounds again, and then how quickly are they able to read words automatically, efficiently, and accurate on site. And we do this 3 times a year, but we also monitor students that are at risk much more frequently. And that's recommended by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or DESE.
And this whole model is based on early identification, because we know if we can determine the students who have some deficits early on, we can intervene and provide them with the instruction they need. It doesn't mean that they're dyslexic, though, for instance. It's just that they have some phonological deficit that is associated with that. So if you get that letter home, what does it mean that your child is at risk for dyslexia? Does it mean that they're dyslexic?
It definitely does not mean that they're dyslexic. This at risk is in no way a diagnosis of dyslexia. We like to be preventative and proactive instead of being reactive. So this just tells us that your child may be at risk for developing some future reading difficulties. And so our job and the use of this screening is to identify who those students are so that we can jump in and provide them some intervention and support to make sure that they don't develop those reading difficulties in the future. It's really common for children of this age, especially in K-2, to have wide variability in their reading abilities. You may see that in your own children if you have more than one child. So this is no way a diagnosis, but it's just data that tells us more about how we can support your child.
So Pentucket's going to respond, though, too, in supporting students that might have some of these deficits. The first and best thing we can do is actually make sure that we're providing a really good evidence-based tier 1 curriculum, that curriculum and instruction that all students get. So you might have heard us using things like Foundations and Heggerty. Those are early phonological programs that we give to all students. We're actually implementing Wit and Wisdom, which is another component for those oral language and comprehension skill development. So all of our teachers are trained in those. Additionally, we're part of the early grades literacy grant work in the Department of Education. So we have coaching and professional development that's been started last year and continues into this year. And Pentucket's really a leader across the state and actually was a leader in the development of the dyslexia guidelines themselves. Is there something else I'm leaving out, Jen, that we're doing to respond to help students who might have these difficulties?
Well, I think the most important thing is that it's our intention to provide high quality instruction in the classroom. So we do this by providing extra support that's right in the classroom for your child. That can be in the form of receiving intervention from a reading specialist or a reading tutor. But it is our goal to make sure we call that tier 1. That's for all students. We really want to make sure that their instruction in the classroom is closing these gaps and meeting these needs and addressing these weaknesses.
And then we can intensify that support and instruction, be it from that reading specialist or classroom teacher. So if students need more, we'll give them more. It doesn't need a special classification or a title, just that's what we're doing. And we're being responsive and monitoring their progress with that data. So what does someone do at home though, if they're getting this notification and saying, oh, my kid's going to need some additional support? What does that mean?
I think first and foremost, please don't panic. There is really nothing that you need to do at this time. We are sending this home to make sure that you're aware that we are monitoring your child's progress and doing everything that we can to support them in their reading development right in the classroom. We will immediately, or we've probably been doing it already, be providing them with that intensive level of support so that we can prevent some of these reading difficulties. And most importantly, if the school or your child's classroom teacher suspects that your child may in fact have dyslexia, they will reach out to you to talk about next steps and to possibly do some further diagnostic testing. But please don't panic. You can visit the DESE Dyslexia Guidelines. We'll provide the link for you right there in the letter that you're receiving, but it does not mean that your child has dyslexia. So we want to make you feel more comfortable with it. But please reach out and ask us any questions that you have. Reach out to the school, your child's teacher or principal, and they'll be happy to talk this over with you.
So I think that's hopefully enough information for everyone at home. In short, that this isn't a special education process. It's not a general education process. It's all departments within the school district working together, leveraging the tools that we have, but making sure that we are monitoring this early on, starting in kindergarten, and really providing that solid foundation of instruction. And when students need a little bit more, that we have the tools and the resources to do that, and we monitor their progress with it. So thank you, Jen. And if you have any questions, please make sure to reach out to your child's classroom teacher, principal, or either one of us.